quickly, just what the open source research experience is before I turn it over to Chiling, who is our presenting her work that she did with Oscar. Oscar, sorry, over there. Carlos is over there. Sorry, one of you guys. That Carlos, not that Carlos. That Carlos. But let me just talk a little bit about what the OSRE is for those of you who don't know. It is our mentorship program, and I'll talk about this more during the Friday session as well. So if you're interested to come back, and it really helps us jumpstart contributor communities, and I think we talked about before. It helps us match students and with great mentors, and we've been doing it since 2018 as part of the first as the part of Google Summer of Code, and then created open source research experience ourselves to fund students who for whatever reason, didn't necessarily fit in GSOC. And Chiling is actually a perfect example because you will be surprised to hear that she's actually in high school and you cannot be under 18 and be in GSOC. And so we were able to fund her with OSRE funding but have a similar experience than what she would have had if she was a GSOC student. Basically, if those of you, actually, this is how the mentors and the students find each other. They see the project ideas, and then they apply. And I'm going to let if we have a little bit of time afterwards, the mentors will be around to talk about their experiences as well. And what an extra one, an additional thing that we added this year, based on funding from NSF, is the Reproducibility, and the Reproducibility project is the Summer of Reproducibility, which is actually the program that that Mohamed, who will have this poster ready to be viewed, was funded through. So, and his mentor was Fraida Fun, who is NYU and also one of our collaborators in the Reproducibility project. All right, so again, we had a slight change. We are not doing Mohamed's lightning talk, but he's available for his poster, and I appreciate his flexibility on that.
OSAVC, efforts towards building a community. The OSAVC, or Open Source Autonomous Vehicle Controller, is an open source hardware and software project that's vehicle agnostic. It was started by Aaron Hunter during his PhD research and supported by a cross-fellowship in 2020. The project originates from the UCSC Autonomous Systems Lab, established in 2003 by Professor Elkin. The lab has been engaged in creating an autopilot since 2009, beginning with the pivotal Slugs autopilot, which now marks 14 years of cumulative expertise in this field. The OSAVC community has actively engaged in the Google Summer of Code program since 2021 and has been enriched by the presence of 6 wonderful contributors. Furthermore, in the summer of 2021, the project hosted a recipient of the Fellowship for Anti-Racism Research, now a mentor, and 2 open source research experience fellows in subsequent years, including me this past summer. These experiences have enriched our project, sparking new ideas and fostering a collaborative and inclusive environment, allowing us to learn, grow, and innovate together in this exciting field of autonomous systems. For the summer of 2023, the mentors were Carlos Espinosa and Aaron Hunter. They oversaw the documentation, simulation, and reviewing teams. In the documentation team, the plan was for me to generate the OSAVC documentation content and hand that over to Aniruddha, who would take that content and format it in a website. In the simulation team, Damodar would build a simulator for the 1 degree of freedom seesaw bot. In the reviewing team, Yukio would follow along the documentation on the website and periodically provide feedback for me to improve the content upon. With the goal of building the OSAVC community, the summer of 2023 had one central project, a seesaw bot, which all aforementioned teams would contribute to. Moreover, we wanted a simple, affordable, and reproducible project that would serve as the example project for using the OSAVC. The purpose of doing so was to not only receive contributions to the OSAVC project, but also to retain and foster a growing community that would continue their engagement with the project after the summer. This idea was inspired by Carlos's model to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in BSOE open source communities. Because of the nature of the project, which includes open source hardware, it would be challenging for remote contributors to access the necessary hardware. As a result, in order to generate the OSAVC documentation, we needed someone local who could use the software and hardware and generate the documentation content thereafter. To upload the content of the documentation to a website, Aniruddha used the VitePress framework. VitePress is a static site generator designed for building fast, content-centric websites. In a nutshell, VitePress takes your source content written in Markdown, applies a theme to it, and generates static HTML pages that can be easily deployed anywhere. Since there was no previous documentation for the OSAVC, I had to first determine the structure of the documentation guide. I settled on first creating a pinout diagram of the board, which I made from the KiCad board schematics, and documenting other related hardware content. Then I documented the software prerequisites for loading code onto the board, including MPLAB-X, the XC32 compiler, and a serial terminal. Additionally, I programmed a user interface test harness for all the peripherals of the OSAVC and also documented the libraries of the supported sensors and actuators. Throughout all of this, I kept track of problems I ran into and made a troubleshooting section in the webpage to help others resolve those errors. During the summer, I also did not exclusively generate documentation for the board. Some of my other work included debugging and fixing some of the errors in the OSAVC peripherals libraries. I also integrated an object detection algorithm in the OSAVC web server, which could run on a TPU-accelerated Raspberry Pi 4, and fixed some video streaming and recording errors on the web server. Furthermore, I applied my web development knowledge to improve the look of the web server. Additionally, I helped with parts of the CAD for the Seesaw bot. Damodar used the Gazebo simulator for simulating the Seesaw bot and controlled it using ROS, and also tested a PD controller with the simulated setup with the angle of the axis as the feedback measurement. Though he first experimented with Unreal Engine and Simulink for the simulator, he switched over to Gazebo and ROS, determining that would be the outline for future simulation work with the OSAVC. The reason for this switch was because there were difficulties when he wanted to simulate a new robot, which was not already found in Simulink. Additionally, as the interactions between parts of the robot increased, so did the difficulty to define animation blueprints and build a communication and control interface between Simulink and Unreal Engine. Since the main project was consistent for all summer contributors, we held weekly team meetings in the OSAVC Discord server, where each member, including the mentors, would update us on the status of their work. Due to the insights at each of these weekly meetings, they improved our collaboration and communication. On top of the weekly team meetings, we would also meet mentors individually, especially if an issue came up and we needed help debugging. This facilitated the compliance of deadlines and fostered a safe space where we knew that we belonged and could seek help from. Specific to the documentation and review team, Aniruddha, Yukio, and I would hold meetings to update each other on what content was being added, what content needed to be changed, and what content was uploaded to the website. To conclude, the results of the summer produced a Seesaw bot in real life, as you can see in this picture, and in the future, this bot will be further developed. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And if you're interested in learning more, here are the links for the GitHub repository and the documentation website that we created this summer. I also linked the OSAVC Discord server if you're interested in joining the community. Thank you so much once again.
And so, yeah, I was really impressed. Well, first off, I was really excited that Carlos was originally an OSRE, one of our first OSRE fellows and or contributor, as he took, and they mentioned the FAR project. So he was one of the first ones we did outside of GSOC. I worked with him on that project, and he also worked with Aaron, who was the mentor for this project that Chiling talked about. And Chiling, if you want to, if you can just oh, say hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, and so it was cool when we were able to bring Carlos back on, and then he discovered Chiling. And you guys actually, if I recall, you all met up even before the whole. You were working together previously as well. So this was a great chance to give some. Chiling, you were already working on the project, and this was a great way to actually bring you in more in an official capacity as a fellow, which I thought was really exciting as well. And again, like I said, she's our first high school student that we've worked with on this, and I think it was a really, really positive. I hope it was a really positive experience for her. I know it was for us. First off, does anybody have questions for Chiling about her work or Carlos about how the project, kind of the mentorship project? Yes, Emily.
I'm just curious, Chiling, how did you get into open source and like find this project?
Yeah, so as Stephanie said, I had already worked with Carlos beforehand. And yeah, and then he introduced me to this OSAVC project, and I was really interested. And yeah, and then he just like extended this fellowship offer to me, and I gladly accepted. And I really enjoyed my time working with him over the summer and with the rest of the team as well.
I'm here also for asking questions.
Yeah, Oscar. I always, when I type it on Slack too, I always call you Oscar.
No worries.
There he is. Carlos. So there's another Carlos. I'm Carlos is it's in my brain. Yeah, no, I was gonna say if people. We also have, so aside from Carlos as mentors, we also have Emily was a mentor this year. Oscar was a mentor. I actually said the right name this time. Who am I missing? Aaron, were you a mentor too? You worked as a mentor, right? Yeah. And so then and they have some of their posters also ready to talk about the. But yeah, so I think it was a really, for our perspective, it was a great year. All of the projects were successful. Some had a little bumpy road. A couple of them are still going. We gave a little extensions to some people. But I think all in all, it actually came out quite good. We had a record number 38, which is double the number we had last year. And a lot of it had to do with the summer reproducibility, which was a whole like the same, like that's where the doubling part, a lot of the doubling came in. But it was a very, really great program. Did maybe any of the mentors want to talk about their experiences?
I think I would like to make a comment. So in the previous experience with Google Summer of Code, especially when you're trying to build a community with open hardware, is another layer of challenge because you need people to have access to the hardware, right? So then we've been having a lot of problem of retaining students and also to create the documentation and everything while we are doing our research. So then I also would like to mention that I received a fellowship and I worked with Stephanie, which allowed me to do some social research.
Social sciences.
Social science research. So then that kind of opened my mind in terms of how important it is to the interaction with people and how create that safe environment for people to feel safe and collaborate and feel belonging. So then that was pretty much the model that I tried to apply this summer, and I think it was very successful. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to retain the students this time.
Yeah. If you're interested, it was a 2020 or 2021?
2021.
2021. We did a fully online symposium, and we have a session where Carlos talks about some of the research he did, which was on diversity and inclusion in open source, which is a lot of what Carlos was working on that summer. So as well as the technical side. So he had a great project, which was actually social science looking at diversity issues in the open source community he was working on, and also doing the technical side with Aaron. So it was really, I liked it. It was great. And that was funded by Basket Engineering. I got to give a shout out to them for doing it. So
yeah. And finally, well, thank you to Chiling. I mean, she's extremely talented. She's a high schooler working with PhD people and postdoc people. So I'm just happy we had the opportunity to work with her.
Great. Question.
Yeah, I guess a question either for you, Carlos, or any of the other mentors here. we've talked about, I guess, research engineers aren't super well understood by students yet. Do you have a good experience of getting people into the world of scientific computing? Are there ways that you think that we could improve this? Or
I am a robotics person mostly, so not particularly in the side. I think it's a little bit different. But
you can talk to like academic robotics.
In academic robotics, okay. So it is challenging. It is challenging because I think sometimes don't have like a lot of social skills. So I think, I mean, I'm talking about myself, but I'm seeing that very often in the field. So I think for me, it was getting interested on knowing about those things and spending time doing it, researching it, and also looking into things that are like completely out of our comfort zone. That is philosophy and those kind of things. I think that was for me what allowed me to change. Because I will say that before that I was completely different. I was not really that interested on working with other people, I will say. And but definitely I see that, or in my perspective, I think that the open source is a really big opportunity for allowing people to build not only technical skills, but also how to engage with other people. So, I mean, I'm blowing like all my experience with open source. So it's been great.
Yeah, this program sounds like a really unique opportunity for getting to lead a group as a PhD student, right? When you're still in graduate school.
Yes.
Or
unfortunately, I think did they cancel the fellowship? I think I did a.
The they just haven't repeated it, but we are still doing fellowships like that under the OSRE. I mean, not that research part, but I mean, that would be something that we would probably consider. But it was originally anti-racism.
Yes.
Fellowship on Anti-Racism Research, was that right? Yeah, okay, and it was like I said, Baskin Engineering sponsored it, but and they did it 2 years in a row. We actually had another fellow, yeah, I was gonna say, Oscar had one fellow also work last year on that one. So maybe they did do it this year, we just didn't have anybody. So it may still be around. But that was by the Inclusive Excellence Hub, which is also who funded the Catalyst program that Emily ran this year, so. But yeah, I should keep an eye out on that. So, yeah, Aaron?
To kind of like follow on like how to like include more research software engineers, I think like one thing as like mentors or like maintainers of projects is to understand, like coming from a student point of view, it's sort of like you want to have the space to explore a lot of different opportunities, but also you want to be able to make an impact. It's like, as like a student, it's like there's so much things like you're exposed to, there's so many things you learn. You don't really have like a direct route, you're just kind of like doing little things. But I think like as like a mentor or maintainer, it's like being able to break down your project into bite-sized pieces that, say, for like a academic season of like a quarter or a semester, where like a student could tackle a project that they could do alongside their classes, is a way to help jumpstart them into contributing more into the project. And they could also like see how your team works or how your meetings work too. And while being able to contribute something where at the end of it, they could say like, I did this for this project and have like an objective experience out of it, which is kind of how I got into this area, which is, I guess like speaking from experience, it's like, that's what I think would help other people to kind of be like a research software engineer.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Because what you said, impact. Can you unpack that a little bit? What is when you say impact? Is it just impact on a research project, or is it more when you say impact? I'm just trying to sort of figure out exactly. Can you maybe elaborate?
Impact, I think, what I mean, it's not necessarily like the amount of work that you contribute to a project, but more like you're included in the mission. It's like you're part of the team, you want to like have some information that's of like knowing what's going on, sort of like in the talk with where it's like where they talk about culture and the entire team. Like, you kind of want to feel accepted that even though you might be doing something really small on the project, you can know it's like being, you can know like the bigger overarching mission that you're contributing towards, and like being in that loop, I feel like is what creates longevity for a student to want to continue doing this quarter to quarter, being part of a team. I think also helps, and I think like for there's like an HCI lab here at UCSC where it's like you kind of have like a feeder program of you have people learning how to do web dev and these little groups to create like a overarching program that PhD students kind of lead. And you kind of, so you have like people doing it from quarter to quarter. It's kind of all student led. And the one thing that kind of makes people want to repeat doing it is like they get to like work with teams together, create a project together, and have like a mission to strive towards. And that's kind of like all you need for students to grow. It's like we want to learn. So
Yeah. So
it's not
it's,
really too complicated.
can I summarize it as something that that you have an impact beyond getting a grade? So,
Yeah, I feel like grades, people are caring less and less.
Yeah.
And it's more of less like trying to figure out like what you kind of want to do in the future.
I'm gonna give Emily the floor, but I want to make sure Chiling has a chance to say bye because I know she has to leave it in like 2 minutes. So,
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
thanks. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Okay, I'll try and make this quick. But I have two things I was going to add. One is to your question about how do we like get people even thinking about these different possibilities, like a research scientist, engineer. I think that in my experience with mentoring students, like it's just like putting them in the same room as these people and like allowing them the chance to ask questions is like underrated. Like, you know, it's hard because it takes time and all of our time is like an extraordinarily valuable resource. But creating situations that are like very small scale, like repeatedly, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got from students I worked with this summer was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that these people are just like normal people who don't have all the answers, and how refreshing it was to hear somebody with years of industry experience just say, I don't know. Like that was like mind blowing for them. So I think that like, you know, just giving people opportunities to have the conversations and see what we're all talking about. It's all people, open source is people. So just letting people see the people. And then to your question, Carlos, about impact, I wanted to share an example of something that I think is like really small, powerful. Is like, I think it is kind of just anything that's more than grades. I think it can be for social good. I think it can be like being seen within a community. But one really cool thing that happened with students I worked with this summer was they noticed we were working in the processing P5 JS community. They noticed a issue that had been discussed for 6 years about line endings in Windows, like something that was affecting only Windows users. And it was like 4 lines of code to fix this, and something that was basically copy and pasted from like a template file. But like the work that had to happen was the students going and talking to the community and having their perspective like accepted. And so I think that that is like a profoundly like impactful experience for them to be like, oh, I'm like just a college student, and like all these people who've been bickering about this thing for 6 years have like accepted this change into the project. So that was like a really big moment for them. And I think it can be like these very small things that keep people coming back and feeling engaged.
That's an awesome story. All right. Well, we're going to do a little wrap up before we hit to the posters, but I will say what the posters are, and also since we're on the OSRE discussion, because one was going to be Aaron's poster. Oh, sorry. Did anybody else have any questions? I'm sorry, I just cut everybody off. You can tell I'm like on the clock. We're all good. Okay. And he's going to present the work that his contributor did, and the team that was working with them on the DirtBiz project, and he was one of the mentors for that. We have the reproducibility in machine learning education, which is Mohamed's. And Mohamed, do you want to just say a couple, because you didn't get to do your lightning talk. Do you want to just say a little bit about what, maybe like a quick 1 minute like synopsis of what your who you worked with and what your project kind of did over the summer, and then people can ask you more questions.
Okay, so our project essentially is to enable students that are not directly involved or engaged in research to see reproducibility. So to do this, we tried to make machine learning materials that can be taught in classrooms that use reproducibility to teach the students more about machine learning. So the material simply is reproducing other papers, research papers, and while reproducing them, they will interact with this material to understand more about reproducibility and the machine learning concepts in these papers. So I worked with Professor Hunt from New York University, as mentioned. And there was also a parallel project under the mentorship of Professor Hunt, which was using reproducibility in network education, I think. And so today I'll be just talking about my own work. There was also 2 other contributors working on different works. So there was one basically creating material, which is like a draft paper. It's not a real paper, where at each notebook, so the structure is like a tree where you start at some notebook. And then as you go further, you find that you need to answer questions about what authors actually did that was not mentioned in this draft paper. By doing so, you have to go to different nodes in this tree structure until you reach somewhere at the bottom where you try to find out if your decisions was actually correct to reach the results that was written in this draft paper. So that's it.
Right, thanks. And yeah, just to say, Mohamed was one of our summer reproducibility. So he was this initial annual, like our first group of summer reproducibility students. So I'm really glad he was able to make the trip. So, what?
So there's gonna be, I think on Friday, right? There's a reproducibility.
Yes.
Yeah, Friday's a reproducibility.
No, it's tomorrow. I'm sorry. Fareed's. Yeah, that's sorry.
Fareed's. So and I highly encourage people to attend that. We've heard already today that reproducibility is a big motivator for integrating open source into the university's research enterprise, and it's sort of also a seed where a lot of things kind of evolve from. I think that basically what Fareed is tomorrow talking about is sort of the next level of reproducibility that goes beyond standardization. But I also wanted to quickly mention that Fraida Fund, who's the mentor of, who is basically really a pioneer of introducing reproducibility artifacts into instructions, and really kind of revolutionizing how we teach computer science by reproducing essentially papers, computer science papers. So fantastic work.
Right, the other student we have, sorry, not to keep moving along, is Russell, and he's going to present his poster. He didn't have to do a lightning talk, so I'm not going to put him on the spot. But I do want to say Russell was another one of those situations where the reason OSRE is great is because I could not have funded him with GSOC because he's a UCSC student, and technically we're not supposed to fund pick our own students. So it was great to be able to have an alternative to, but he actually had a GSOC proposal, but it was something where I was like, you know what, we were better off doing it this way because it would have been harder to get you in GSOC. So that was great. He was working with Jose Renau, who may also come in a bit. So he's presenting, and his is on highlighting and formatting PyRope HDL. And then also Oscar, I'm actually not calling you Carlos at least. I will talk about the work that his student, just one student, or are you doing both students?
This is by one student.
One student, yeah. So one of the projects that he mentored this summer. And you had 2 projects, right? 2 GSAC projects. So his are actually all GSAC projects. So I think that is it for now. I want to do a quick wrap up and just little heads up about a few things for tomorrow, and then we'll move into the just move straight into the poster sessions, and then the future coming out soon. And I think bringing out beer soon too. Important stuff. All right, that so it's one thing that I want to apologize to folks. This for those of you who are remote, there are a couple you left. There will be remote stuff, but I want to get this to the coming in person. I do apologize that there was some confusion about working today. I think there was old instructions and somehow that I linked people to. But so just like today, people need to grab their parking permit if they're non-UCSC folks. You grab your permit at the kiosk coming in, and then from there go to Core West. For those who are UCSC folks, we can't actually like get you special because you're UCSC. They make you pay, buy the whatever it is, if you're a grad student or if you're undergrad or if you're faculty. It depends on where you're at, so we don't have any control over that. But still, if you need a parking pass, you're going to have to get it from TAPS. So the parking kiosk is on the way in and near the main gate. If for some reason that's closed, the TAPS office has go in there. And then you park at Core West because we're going to be doing all this tomorrow as a multi-track thing at Engineering 2. The maps, I will send out maps for those who do not know where that all is. All the registration info, coffee breaks and stuff will be held in front of our suite, which is near 506. And so for those who haven't been there, if you go up to the 5th floor and you make a left out of the elevator and make another left, you will see us. That's tomorrow. And we have a full schedule tomorrow with numerous 2 tracks until the afternoon, where we have a 3 to 4 track conference, which we're already getting some great suggestions on. At least I've got a couple good ones. So I haven't looked since then. So I will try again. We have 4 venues. 3 actually have pretty good remote access options, and so and one is not so great, but it'll be okay if people needed it to be remote. It'll be just an hour session. If for some reason there's a lot more, I could probably wrangle up some space that just might not have a good remote option. And then again, it looks like this. Well, it doesn't look like this anymore because we've been writing on it since the morning, but I will have that scheduled by, like I said, lunchtime tomorrow. I think that's it for now. Okay, great. So we're gonna go into the poster session. Food will start coming out. Food and drinks will start coming out soon. And technically the Oktoberfest doesn't start till 5:30, but if you see drinks and stuff out, feel free to abide or whatever, and enjoy. So thank you so much for the first day. It's been pretty successful. Yes.
Could we quickly give an overview of our session?
Oh yeah. Sure. I always get away with just letting people go.
Just to give people an idea what we're talking about.
All right. This is what these are, I think.
Especially since it's dual track.
Yeah.
You have to make it.
Right. So track 1 was, well, some people are actually here who are doing them. So why don't you do your first one, which is the quantifying and qualifying value of open source?
Yeah, so basically that first, we're trying to figure out ways of using and collecting existing data. So it's secondary data assumption, to figure out the value of open source, but also the risk of open source within the University of California. And so that's basically that. Can you click on? No, this is
sorry.
So that session, we're gonna hear from various people, that can help with that. But then we also have like a 15-minute discussion at the end. But yeah, I will give a quick introduction. Then I think it is Adam, He's going to give a quick overview of how he collects information about repositories. And Georg Link will provide a quick overview of how we evaluate the data that we find in these repositories. And then
Hold on, I'm opening it for you. I'm opening it for you. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jennifer Milo from the Center for Security and Emerging Technology at Georgetown University will provide an overview of ORCA, which is actually very close to what we want to do. It's essentially an existing repository collection that they kind of monitor across various open source projects. So that's going to be interesting information. And then I think that's after that we have discussions. So that's.
Let's do it this way. That way we can all look at your. You're all panel. Just talk about your.
Oh, sure. I'm Emily. Yeah, I'm
Once again, Bruce throwing something at you. Oh, girl.
I'm definitely going to be watching the video from your session at the same time.
Sorry.
Good, it's okay. I'm quite interested in that topic as well. But I'm going to be running a session on mentorship and open source, and mentorship as particularly a way to get involved in open source. I'm really excited to be hosting 3 people who are doing 3 different types of mentorship programs or initiatives in the open source space at different, one's a foundation and the 2 others are more independent organizations. And also we piloted a new program here this summer that had an in-person component for, I think, the first time as a residential program. Like, I don't know what happened before my time, but yeah, so we piloted a new program, which was really cool. And one of those students is going to be joining as well to talk about his experience as a mentee. So.
And then Carlos, you can talk about what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, so this has been already raised multiple times today. This is the buff to talk about the next open source conference, or the first open source conference, or maybe like the next iteration of what this is. Who knows, right? We will find out, but that's really like figuring out the challenges and the opportunities to really rethink academic conferences when you're bring in the open source components. Right? What can we learn from the open source communities and how they review their stuff and how they, engage communities and all these other things. How can we learn from academic communities and how they manage their stuff. Reviews is a big deal, right? And that is actually under great discussion in various academic communities because it seems kind of antiquated and wasteful. And it actually taxes people in ways that they should tax. So anyway, so there's like lots of different models that we can discuss. And we have also this other bookend, an ACM rep, which was actually happened in this very location earlier this year. The first ACM conference for reproducibility and replicability, and where we actually have the conference chair.
Yeah.
And we actually also have a date, right?
June
16th in Rennes, France, right? It's part of, it's in Rio.
Sorry, Aaron.
So just say that's sort of a bookend of an academic conference that has a very strong open source component, but kind of goes the other way. Instead of changing the structure, it sort of started out as sort of more like a traditional conference, but there's certainly willingness to learn from whatever we discuss here and maybe apply that for that conference that already exists. So.
Oscar, talk about yours real quick.
Okay.
You're not my boss, so I don't have.
How much time? 1 minute? Okay, 1 minute. So I'm the lead of the Polify project, which is an interdisciplinary sort of network finding and reconstruction package. that we've been developing together for a year and a half or something, based on prior research in cosmology and whatnot. Can you scroll down? There's a picture.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
No, just not mine. This one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what you meant.
Can you
Or do you want to do read more?
zoom in? Can you zoom in?
Not.
Okay. Well, whatever. So this thing basically finds networks in data. If you assume there should be networks, that's kind of like the process there. The original application has been cosmology to find the cosmic web, but we think it's applicable to all kinds of networks. If you find it interesting, we have a poster there with one of the GSOC students, Kiran. So please come talk to me. Tomorrow, this is a workshop on the actual toolkit. So where it's got in that year and a half since, officially working on this project, where it is now, what's the future, what's the plans. There will be a live demo, which you can follow interactively. So just clone the repository and then follow with me. There will be also a few of the students who participate in the project. I don't know who exactly, because it's sort of, they are not sure. So some of the members of the team will be there. There will be cool 3D prints that I'm bringing that are even here now. So lots of interesting things. Hopefully, come check it out. Thank you.
All right. He doesn't have to be here. She was here earlier. Carlos, do you want to go?
Yeah. So one of the aspects that I think motivates that first workshop where we look at quantification of the risk and value of open source is supply chain security. As I said at the very beginning today, there's software legislation coming, and I think it's important that whatever we do, like for instance collecting data about open source repositories, that it is driven by research. Because if we don't do that, then there's not going to be that much motivation to engage, by the university, and the traditional values of a project kind of are diminished. But if you make it sort of an research instrument with actual research projects that then can get funding for actually doing this kind of research, in addition to what we are getting in funding, then suddenly you got something going, right? And so this is like a session that looks at various experts participating in security in the open source food chain, and more general, right? It's not necessarily just UC, or it's not necessarily just the data set that we're looking at, but it's sort of like the research side of one of the motivators for the kind of data collection we're thinking.
And then the last one is the reproducibility one, which you just kind of talked about, the reproducibility one that Farid is doing.
Yeah. So again, that's reproducibility not only in containerization of software, but also building software.
Oh, Alex. You're here.
Yeah.
So if you have questions, I can ask them. All right.
Yeah, was that a fair summary? Or?
Sorry, say that again.
Was that a fair summary? That's a reproducibility.
Yeah. The reproducibility.
Was it a fair summary?
Yeah, that's a fair summary.
Oh, that's, I was gonna say, I did not realize we were having quite so much of there's like a real big glare on that. So this is interesting. I'll try to fix that. So yeah, actually just, if you just want to turn the video off on that, that'd be fine. Or that, yeah. All right, great. And at the end of tomorrow, we'll do another wrap up like this to talk about the three. And the way we'll deal with that is that everybody just stays in the room they're in, and we'll, because we'll all just link into the same Zoom room. So, and then talk from there, and it'll be pretty short. So we'll just chat and see what's going on the next day. All right, without that, unless there's questions, we're ending the remote part.